Thanks for taking the time to experience our presentation today regarding why our company should bring our state-of-the-art wind farm technology to Sri Lanka. Our team has conducted extensive research as to why Sri Lanka is an ideal location for our next international venture. Sri Lanka is an island in the Indian Ocean located just south of India. It is slightly larger than West Virginia and has a population of over 21 million ethnically diverse people. They are generally recognized for their widespread religious tolerance. However, tensions between the Sinhalese majority and the Tamil minority separatists erupted into war in 1983. After 2 decades of fighting, a ceasefire was finally reached in February of 2002. However, the violence continued and intensified in 2006. The government finally regained control of the eastern province in 2007. By May 2009, the government announced that its military had successfully ended the conflict. Since then, the government has resettled tens of thousands of internally displaced persons, has spent millions with the assistance of foreign aid on a number of massive infrastructure projects to reconstruct its economy and restore life for those affected by the conflict. Beyond physical reconstruction, Sri Lanka is also focused on improving political stability, reducing government bureaucracy, and fighting internal corruption. President Rajapaksa's popularity has risen dramatically since the defeat of the Tamil Tigers, and he remains centered on delivering strong economic growth for Sri Lanka. One risk to foreign investors is the country's fluctuating tax policy, which remains inconsistent from year to year. However, due to Sri Lanka's desperate need for infrastructure development, especially for additional energy production, these industries are receiving the greatest incentive and government support. Independent assessments have reflected the increased stability and rapid development over the past 10 years. Fitch Ratings upgraded Sri Lanka to BB- from B+ on July 18, 2011. This upgrade reflects the stabilization and recovery of the economy under the country's International Monetary Fund program and increased efforts to address the chronic budget deficit position. The ONDD, the Belgian Export Credit Agency, which ensures against political risks related to foreign direct investments, rated Sri Lanka as a 3 out of 7, where 1 is the highest rating. Sri Lanka is highly committed to attracting greater levels of foreign direct investment. To support this initiative, the government established an autonomous agency known as the Board of Investment. This agency is responsible for attracting and capturing foreign direct investment for Sri Lanka. The BOI currently manages several export processing zones which have uniquely designed business-friendly regulations. A relatively new division of the BOI, known as the Public-Private Partnership Unit, has been delegated the responsibility to coordinate all public-private infrastructure projects, which will be an essential partner throughout this project. The current market opportunity in Sri Lanka is significant. Sri Lanka has a rapidly developing economy. In 2010, Sri Lanka's GDP increased by 9.1%, and in 2011 is on pace for another 8%. Post-war country reintegration has greatly boosted the fisheries and agriculture industries, and massive reconstruction projects have resulted in substantial economic development progress. Growth has also been fueled by the strength of their standard exports of garments, teas, and textiles. The United States already has a strong trade relationship with Sri Lanka, and we import 40% of their garment exports each year. However, Sri Lanka wants to begin taking advantage of its strategic location and comparative advantage in services, and it intends to focus on cargo transshipment, IT, business processing, and outsourcing. The IMF, Asian Development Bank, and ratings agencies agree on this point and recognize that most aid and investment to date has focused on physical infrastructure and port construction projects. There is a substantial and growing need for electricity infrastructure improvements. Sri Lanka's power sector has struggled for decades to meet rising demand. Around 20% of households still lack electricity access, and the government-owned Ceylon Electricity Board is weighed down with debt, crippling its ability to fund new infrastructure. The government has launched a 10-year development plan to address these constraints and support the CEB in improving coverage and service efficiency. The initiatives will include modernization and upgrading the country's transmission system and launching a demand-side management program for public lighting. Additionally, the Asian Development Bank approved loans of $135 million and a further $25 million for the Clean Energy and Access Improvement Project in Sri Lanka. The funds are to support energy efficiency improvements, develop the use of renewable energy, and increase connections and service to rural households. Sri Lanka's short supply and rising demand, coupled with the government's commitment to renewable energy, make this market an ideal destination for introducing our wind power technology. Sri Lanka currently imports all of its fossil fuels. The increasing price of fossil fuels has negatively affected its economic development. Using Sri Lanka's natural resources such as wind to generate electricity will provide relief from the high cost of importing fossil fuels and make Sri Lanka less dependent on foreign imports. The Ceylon Electricity Board in Sri Lanka has seen an increase in energy needs by 8% per year since 2003. The need by 2020 is estimated to be at least an additional 100 megawatts. The use of renewable forms of energy such as solar and wind has been extremely limited, and despite ideal natural conditions and high wind potential, wind-generated power is the most undeveloped power source within Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's short supply and growing demand, coupled with the government's commitment to renewable energy, make this market an ideal destination for introducing our wind power technology. The Sri Lankan government is committed to reducing dependence on oil and created the Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority to transform their commitment into action. Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa stated in his address to the UN, "We are at present strongly focusing on putting in place the necessary public infrastructure for the private sector to invest even more in my country. Energy efficient and green energy technology-based industries are among those attracting major investment." The government has been actively soliciting international investment into wind power and has issued several requests for proposals for these needs, specifically for plants capable of producing between 3 megawatts and 10 megawatts per plant, with a long-range goal of reaching 50 megawatts in power produced by wind over the next 5 years. The Board of Investment has also granted investment approvals associated with open RFPs for investments up to $68 million, allowing foreign organizations to develop and bid on these opportunities. Mapping results for Sri Lanka indicate that there is good to excellent wind potential, particularly the northwestern coast. This coastal area receives steady wind throughout the year, which will support the consistent production of power at all times. Production capacity will spike at least twice a year during the monsoon seasons, which are 9 months of each year. For this project, we propose the development of a 10 megawatt power plant located on the coast of the Kalpitiya Peninsula in the Puttalam district. This area provides very favorable wind conditions required for large-scale power generation and is also directly connected to the national power grid, which will allow for effective power distribution. This area has already been designated by the Sri Lankan government to pilot wind farm technologies, and strong government support exists for further development of this area. We propose utilizing the 1 megawatt wind and star energy turbine. At 110 feet in height and a 60-foot footprint, this turbine has one of the smallest footprints for its production capacity. These units have no exposed moving parts and are more efficient than traditional prop turbines. The average capacity utilization by prop turbines is in the range of 26 to 33%, while the wind and star energy turbines utilize 45 to 60% of their capacity. Our vertical cylinder allows for wind to reach the turbines through vertical slats regardless of the speed or direction of the wind. The solar system on the top of the turbine amplifies the wind speed. Our turbines rotate the shaft attached to the generator so that as long as the RPMs required to produce energy are maintained, energy will be produced. On the rare occasions that the solar panels do not produce the necessary energy, there are 12 amps of backup grid system. The patent-pending Hydrobine triplex turbine allows our generators to produce power consistently regardless of wind conditions. Some of the major competitors for wind energy technologies within this market include GE Energy of the United States, Vestas of Denmark, Siemens of Denmark and Germany, Gamesa from Spain, Mitsubishi from Japan, Solzon from India, Clipper Wind Power from the United Kingdom, Nordex from Germany, and Agility Logistics in Sri Lanka. The cost for a single wind and star unit is $1.8 million, which is $700,000 less than the units being produced by GE and other competing manufacturers. The $1.8 million includes all installation costs as well as consulting fees on linking to formalized power grids and substations. It is also important to recognize that we will not face competition from conventional sources in Sri Lanka, like coal and imported diesel. $338 million has been spent on importing diesel, which has been declared unsustainable by the Sri Lankan government. Our only other non-wind energy competition would be hydroelectric power. While Sri Lanka has recently built a small hydro plant, the natural resources don't exist for multiple additional plants. With our high reliability, higher capacity, and low price point, we are poised to compete effectively and win in the Sri Lanka renewable energy market. Private sector investment resulted in Sri Lanka's first commercial wind energy plant. The 10-megawatt Sanok wind power was commissioned in March 2010 at Patalam on the island's northwestern coast. Following that, 2 other private investors developed 10-megawatt plants on the coast of Patalam, representing the largest wind power projects in the country to date. All of these companies used the same process, a standardized power purchase agreement with the CEB. Clearly, our competitors' success factors in this market are the use of the standardized power purchase agreements with price floors, international expertise, and utilizing the stated government energy initiatives and incentives. By entering the Sri Lankan market now with our superior technology, we will establish a strong foothold in an area with exceptional expansion potential for years to come and will be known as a trusted provider and the partner of choice for the government. Once established in Sri Lanka, our venture will experience limited market risk. The government has adopted a guaranteed floor price for produced energy that will allow secure revenue projections, and due to the constant supply shortages, all energy produced will be purchased. The price of electricity tends to be higher in Sri Lanka compared to other Asian countries, resulting in higher profit potential within Sri Lanka. For this market, we propose an investment in a 10-megawatt wind plant with a 30-year standardized purchase power agreement with the CEB and the Board of Investment in Sri Lanka. From other projects using this technology, the construction to commissioning phases are typically completed in less than 6 months. This is a strong competitive advantage as our projects can be proposed and produced in under a year, which will allow us to quickly take advantage of the rising demand. Our projections illustrate the yearly revenue, fixed costs, total financial investment, and the estimated return on investment. The projections are based on the current rates for the SPPA, but we will also show a slightly less optimistic view and a slightly more optimistic view that takes into account market changes that could take place over the next 30 years. With an investment of $18 million to purchase and install 10 turbines, the annual net income is projected to be $5.9 million, resulting in a simple payback of 3 years and a net income of $178 million over the life of the project. Depending on market fluctuations, the payback could increase to 7 years or decrease to 2 years. In the less optimistic view, the net income over the life of the project would be $73 million. If the price of electricity increases, then the $18 million investment could net $310 million over the life of the project. This project is viable because of Sri Lanka's pressing and continued demand for electricity, the world-class location for harnessing the wind, and the government support for external investment. The market risk is relatively low due to Sri Lanka's standardized power purchasing agreements and the solid growth potential. A number of companies in the Sri Lankan market have successfully utilized the same process, but as there is still a pressing demand for electricity and due to our higher reliability, higher capacity, and lower price point, we are poised to win in the Sri Lankan renewable energy market. We are asking for an $18 million investment, which will have a simple payback of 3 years with an annual net income of $5.9 million and a projected net income of $178 million. We are well placed to take advantage of this opportunity now and into the future. Thank you for your time and consideration of this project proposal.
Messing around with jerks. My car is parked outside. I'm afraid it doesn't work. I'm looking for a partner. someone who gets things fixed. Ask yourself this question: do you want to be rich?